Do you know which real-world references are present in the game Tactics Ogre Reborn? The world of Ogre Battle takes many inspirations from real historical events for the conflicts, characters, and plots featured in the games. Mixing different periods and cultures as a reference, we can draw some interesting parallels that may or may not have been used as inspiration by the developers. The Holy Lodis Empire takes inspiration from the Romans, the Vatican, and the spread of the Christian faith around the world through the Crusades. Taking place between the 11th and 13th centuries, the Templars in the game are directly referenced in their holy war to spread the word of Lodis, the saint sent by Philor, the sun god, in the lands of the so-called barbarian peoples and impose their domains. Formed by 16 powerful legions of knights, a reference to the Roman legions that were formed by more than 3,000 men each. Lodis is commanded by Pope Sardian that we can make a parallel with Pope Urban II, who was responsible for starting the Crusades with the objective of increasing wealth and territories, in addition to the supposed salvation of the souls of pagans. Lancelot Tartharus may have been inspired by Hugues de Payens, the first Grand Master of the Knights Templar who served from 1119 to 1136. Very good at politics, it was through him that the Knights Templar gained support of upper nobility and influential clergymen, very similar to how Tartharus increased his influence in Lodis with his Dark Knights and his alliance with the Pope, becoming the most feared force in the empire. The Kingdom of New Zenobia is a reference to the Byzantine Empire. Presented in the game as direct opponents of Lodis, in real life the Byzantine Empire was also called the Eastern Roman Empire, and that was what remained after the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. The two sides of the same coin is the conflict between the game's two Lancelots, each representing their land's ideals of control versus freedom. In addition, many emperors of the Byzantine Empire were often canonized as saints for their actions. The King of Zenobia is called Tristan Zenobia, also known as the Saint King Tristan in-game. One of the inspirations for Tristan may have been Emperor Justinian I, who ruled from 527 to 565. He was one of the most powerful emperors to have ruled over the Byzantine Empire, and during his reign, the empire reached the peak of its power and prestige. Justinian launched a vigorous campaign to restore the lost territories of the fallen Western Roman Empire. He was successful in annexing most of these territories to the Byzantine Empire, a very clear parallel with Tristan's journey in the March of the Black Queen, in which he restores and annexes the entire territory dominated by the sacred Zytagenian Empire at the foundation of the Kingdom of New Zenobia. Another parallel that may have served as an inspiration is Miguel Silo, who was not only the highest spirit and the most lucid mind of his time, but also an authentic artist who served as an important advisor to many successive Byzantine emperors. He most notably penned down a large body of literature on history, philosophy, politics, and science, also penning a body of poetry. His Chronographia is the most important memoir of the entire Middle Ages, unmatched by any other for its freshness, the vivacity of his expression, the finesse of his psychological intuition, and his skill for making portraits. What parallel do we have here? Come on, this one is easy. A few seconds for you to think. Have you figured it out? It's Warren Omen and his Warren Report. Finally, going to the story of the Valerian Owls and Tactics Ogre. The past conflict that resulted in the island's unification under Dorgalua Aberith took place between the 5 kingdoms that ruled the island: Barnicia, Fidak, Almorica, Coritani, and Brigantes. The beginning of the all-out war between them takes place when Lord Clement of Barnicia was assassinated in a coup attempt by armed militants. The parallel to this conflict is precisely the First World War, with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, which triggered the start of the Great War that took place between 1914 to 1918. After Dorgalua's death without leaving heirs, there was an internal war on the island for control between the 3 main clans that were there, and that will be the beginning of the plot in Tactics Ogre. The real event that inspired this conflict is the Bosnian War that took place between 1992 and 1995 as a result of the breakup of Yugoslavia. This conflict is considered the most violent war in Europe after World War II. The Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia was made up of 6 constituent republics: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. With economic failure, the end of communism around the world, and ethnic conflicts between minorities, these republics began to seek one by one the separatism of this federation and the independence of each country, which ended up causing extremely violent and deadly conflicts between those willing to maintain the regime and the revolutionaries. A dark period in human history marked by many war crimes, including genocide, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and en masse wartime violence against women. In short, when Bosnia and Herzegovina declared independence, they found themselves in the middle of the conflict between Serbia and Croatia, who wanted to take control of the territory and divide Bosnia for themselves. The 3 different clans fighting, namely the Muslim Bosniaks, Orthodox Serbs, and Catholic Croats, are exactly the Walister, Galvestani, and Bakram clans of Tactics Ogre. It is from this conflict the famous event of the Siege of Sarajevo, which may have been the inspiration for the Siege of Almorica and the imprisonment of Duke Ronway in the game. Another major event of this period was the Srebrenica massacre, an ethnic cleansing campaign that included extermination, unlawful confinement, violence against women, torture, plunder and destruction of private and public property, inhumane treatment of civilians, the targeting of political leaders, intellectuals, and professionals, the unlawful deportation and transfer of civilians, the unlawful shelling of civilians, the unlawful appropriation and plunder of real and personal property, destruction of homes and businesses, and the destruction of places of worship. This event is seen in the game as the Blood War determined by Lunder Balbatos through the advance of Galvestani troops against the Wallisters, which is why Danum and the Wallisters have such anger and desire for revenge against them at the beginning of the game, and would be used as justification for the event in Balbamusa. Lunder Balbatos may have been inspired by Radovan Karadzic, who was the political leader of the Serbs at that time. His trial before the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia on charges of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity for his role in the Sarajevo bloody siege and the 1995 massacre of 8,000 Muslims in Srebrenica. He told the court that atrocities apparently committed by Bosnian Serbs during the Sarajevo siege were staged by the Muslim side and dismissed the Srebrenica massacre as a myth. A very close resemblance to the event at Balbamusa in the game and Balbatos claims afterwards. Another important figure in this context is Ratko Mladic, the Bosnian Serb military leader. Mladic is also charged over the Sarajevo siege and the Srebrenica massacre. He became known as the Butcher of Bosnia, a title much like the one Danum receives when he accepts the Duke's orders, being called the Butcher of Goliad. On the other side of the region, the Croat-Bosniak War took place between the Bosniaks and Croats. Ruling the backroom in the game, Brenton Warren may have been inspired by Mate Boban, who was a Croat politician and one of the founders of the Croatian Republic of Herzegovina, an unrecognized entity within Bosnia and Herzegovina. He was the first president of Herzegovina from 1991 until 1994. The parallel here is how Brenton was the first to declare his region as independent within the island, creating the backroom Valerian kingdom and later seeking to dominate the entire island for himself. Regarding Duke Ronway, perhaps a possible parallel is the figure of Sefer Halilovic. He was a former general and commanding officer of the nationalist party he created called the Bosnian Herzegovinian Patriotic Party, a group meant to protect his land from the invaders. This is very similar to the Wallister resistance. He was indicted by the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, charged with 1 count of violation of the laws and customs of war. The massacre he was accused of being responsible for took place in villages of Grbavica and Uzdol in September 1993, another parallel with Balbamus's in-game event. The Bosnian War ended with the General Framework Agreement for Peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina, also known as the Dayton Agreement, in which the warring parties agreed to peace and to a single sovereign state known as Bosnia and Herzegovina. Representing Serbia was President Slobodan Milosevic. Representing Croatia was President Franjo Tudjman. And representing the newly independent Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina was President Alija Izetbegovic. This is very close to the unification of Valeria as a single sovereign state under the command of Versalia Aberith, with representatives of the Wallister, Galvestani, and Backroom agreeing with her governance, which finally brought peace between the conflicting clans on the island. Tactics Ogre is not only a unique game, it also ensures that the memory of these events must never be forgotten. The terrors of war and the suffering that the Bosnian War caused, immortalized in the game in the so-called Heim conflict. Do you know any other references to real events in the game? Leave a comment below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos from the Ogre Battle Saga. Thank you and see you next time.